Despite felony charges, a paternity suit, and a divorce in the works, Senator Dave Durenberger put his problems aside and spoke to his fellow Republicans today with ease. The senator was indicted on felony charges earlier this month for lying about reimbursement for travel expenses. Durenberger is traveling across the state this weekend on a two-level fundraising campaign, a campaign war chest for an undeclared campaign, and a legal defense fund.
I have, with the approval of the Ethics Committee, created a legal expense trust fund. So I have at various times arranged for people to help me pay my bill. That's particularly true now because what's happening to me now with regard to this indictment is totally unjustified.
At the convention, Republicans continue their support for the senator despite his legal problems.
I think Senator Dave Durenberger has done a wonderful job for us in the past years. He has received maybe some bad publicity. He's done some things that we would say are not quite right. But I think the people of the 8th District are supporting him in every way.
I think he's getting support from really a pretty broad spectrum of the party, and I think in the state also.
And the question remains, will the senator run for re-election?
I haven't thought about that. I mean, I'm thinking about it in terms of, do I want to spend 6 years doing this kind of work? How will I spend the next 18 months?
In Evelyn, Derek Hines, News 6.
What is transitional housing, and is it different from the women's?
There have been women that have received life-threatening letters, satanic threats, and harassing phone calls. We feel that these racist attacks cause women to live in fear.
Congratulations and best wishes for a successful summer.
Yeah, sure, you bet. Everybody's looking here.
We're about 80% completed with the construction on the ship. There are some of the other things that need to be redone or completed, the decking, some of the trunnel work, a number of other things with the forward and the aft cabins need to be completed. And we expect that that should be completed by this fall.
It's you. It's you. It's Dawn again. Oh, good.
And don't interview Margaret over here. She does. It's tough for that there, Margaret. Coming on your head. See there. Oh, with those glasses, it really does.
It's you. It's you. It's Dawn again. Oh, good. These are heavy.
Well, we hope, first of all, to raise people's awareness about diversity issues. We feel as though if our globe is going to survive, we have to get along, cooperate, collaborate in addressing the problems that are shared by everyone. And one of the first places we can do that is here at the university.
Wait, Senator Bertram? Say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. The motion prevails. Senator Chandler moves.
You know, I passed it out of the House Environment and Natural Resources Committee with a real good margin. If the Senate had followed through, I think there'd been less complications and less opposition.
this year. He chased my wife and my son across the Bong Bridge and cornered them over at Taco John's in West Duluth and threatened to blow their heads off with a shotgun, just like he did with my son's car. He blew his car apart with a shotgun.
We believe very strongly that the full impact of the DNA evidence should be presented very strongly to the jury. Under the present rules of evidence, as interpreted by the Supreme Court, they were not able to draw all of the conclusions that might logically follow from the presentation of that evidence.
On your feet.
These men are the members of Alpha Company, the first graduating class of the Challenge Incarceration Program at Willow River. For the past 6 months, they have relearned their life skills in a program much like military boot camp.
Controlling your anger and looking at things differently, like considering all the factors, those are called CAFs and PMIs, plus minuses and interests, a lot of different things.
Langford and the other members of his company are first-time offenders. The Challenge Incarceration Program is the first of its kind in Minnesota, and the people who have worked with them say they have a good chance to stay out of the criminal system.
I think they've prepared themselves very well for release. They've learned some thinking skills and some job-seeking skills and chemical dependency issues that they need to deal with, and I think they're pretty well prepared.
I think we've got to let people know when they're doing good. I think too much in society today, frankly, is negative. And the whole idea of positive reinforcement, I think, brings about good results.
Tomorrow, these young men will begin phase 2 of the Challenge Incarceration Program in their hometowns. It will involve 6 months of intensive surveillance and supervision. In Willow River, Dave Jensch, News 6.
Today, victims have a lot of rights with regard to crimes, and witnesses of crimes also have those same rights. So I think a lot of people really don't know what they are, and we need to get the word out.
Leaving at 9 o'clock tonight to engage in these consultations. Over the next week, I'll travel to Britain, France, and he will make final decisions based upon these consultations.
So the Europeans will be consulted before the American people?
Well, the American people are being consulted as we move along in the security team and the Joint Chiefs. There is an important strategic interest here of trying to contain this conflict. The United States does not want this conflict to spread in a way that would involve our allies, Greece and Turkey. It does not want it to spread to Kosovo or Macedonia. So it's an effort to contain the conflict, to keep it where it is, to stop the aggression that is such in the strategic interest not only of the United States but our allies as well.
Superior Police nipped a potentially profitable drug-growing operation in the bud when they seized 358 marijuana plants at this small home in Superior. But authorities almost missed their chance. 2 weeks later, the crop may have been planted in the ground. Once matured, they would have a street value of $400,000.
There was some 600 and some potting type pots that were also confiscated. So it would indicate that there was a fairly large growing operation, at least in the works or being planned for in the future.
Police say stopping a marijuana drug operation before spring planting can be critical to making an arrest. Oftentimes, a marijuana grower will plant the drug on public property and harvest the crop in the fall. Even if the field is found, it's harder for police to trace.
It certainly makes it easier in the sense that we know who was responsible, where if we found it out in the woods somewhere, we wouldn't necessarily know who had planted the product.
Like many communities, Superior has seen an increase in the drug trade over the past years. Last year, police netted the largest drug bust in the region with the capture of a Superior, Texas marijuana pipeline. Authorities say they don't know what kind of crop to expect this year, but with a major supplier out of the picture, they are expecting others to move in. In Superior, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
They will relay to you quality of life was a major factor in them coming to the city of Duluth.
Duluth beat out dozens of other cities with today's announcement that Cirrus Design, a maker of small amateur aircraft kits, is moving from Baraboo, Wisconsin and building a new $20 million manufacturing facility in Duluth. Wisconsin's loss is Minnesota's gain, with the promise of 250 high-paying new jobs.
Initially, we're talking about 60 direct jobs with 100 indirect jobs, which includes the retail and the service industry in the city of Duluth, for a total of 160 jobs, with a $5 million annual payroll in the first year.
In exchange, the city has offered the company over $500,000 in loans and tax incentives.
This wasn't the best incentive package.
But company officials say it wasn't just the incentives that attracted them here. Brothers and owners Alan and Dale Clampmeyer say the decision to move was based on the quality of Duluth's airport and the community's quality of life.
It is a lot more than what the incentive packages are. We looked at the airport and the university and set the criteria of what we needed in a community, and then went beyond that, and we picked a community that Alan and I wanted to raise our families in.
A somewhat revolutionary idea in a day and age when incentives can make or break a deal.
I mean, a business that moves based only on incentive packages are really making short-term decisions, which are part of the whole problem with the U.S. economy.
Cirrus Design officials hope to begin construction on the facility in June and have the entire operation off the ground by September. In Duluth, Amy Rutledge, News 6.
Our community would fail if we didn't have our volunteers. You just cannot pay everybody to do everything that the volunteers do. And so I don't think we can exist without them.
100,000 employees. And in that number, you're going to get good employees and you're going to get bad employees. You're going to get good managers and you're going to get bad managers. And what we have to try and do is figure out some way we can identify explosive situations and diffuse them before they become a tragedy.
Well, for a long time we felt that rural kids didn't get a fair shake. You know, municipal water supplies in this state have been fluoridated for many years, but there are a lot of kids who live in rural areas who have never benefited from fluoride.
Projections for the future, do you see it continuing to drop, go up? At the county level funding, and that's a part.
So the issue here needs to be community support, citizen support to the commissioners to shift priorities and or levy a little more to fund these services.
Nationally, internationally, statewide, with hearing impaired individuals. And
imagine what it would be like not to be able to.
One of the decoders will be in the children's room here at the Superior Public Library, and I believe it will be, if it's not in use in the children's room, it will be available for people to be available as a loaner, and also there's another decoder that will be available as a loaner.
Actually, seniors are now about 20% of the population in northeastern Minnesota, and as we live longer, our needs change. And we need more opportunities to find out about ways to make our life better as we get older. And that's what Senior Options North is about.
They're just keeping the messages, and when everybody is in a different state of mind, they'll probably share their messages again.
It has become an appropriate end to a tough legislative session.
In a climate of scandal and distrust, the final hurdle of the state budget has become a standoff. The legislature wants a $355 million budget and a smaller rainy day reserve fund. The proposal vetoed by Governor Carlson last week would tax higher-income Minnesotans to keep property taxes down.
Why? Because our property taxes are going sky high. We want to keep those property taxes down because they're regressive, not based on ability to pay.
The governor wants a larger budget reserve, $500 million, to prevent short-term borrowing.
Cutting that reserve from $500 million to $360 million means that our short-term borrowing would be for potentially as much as 6 months, and that's unacceptable.
But the key to breaking the deadlock will likely be the governor's demand for a so-called unallotment privilege, a way to make cuts in the budget later in the year if revenues fall below projections. Legislators say they don't want to give Carlson that much power.
The governor currently has power to veto spending bills. He has the line item veto. He wants to go beyond that and almost dictatorial powers to look at a budget and ignore 201 legislators that were elected by the people of Minnesota and cut what he wants to cut.
The DFL leadership hope to meet with the governor to reach a compromise before the midnight adjournment deadline. If no agreement is reached, a special session will be called before July 1st, the start of the new fiscal year. At the Capitol, Derek Hines, News 6.
Vetoed both the high.
We'll have a special session. I'm absolutely determined to make sure that Minnesota never, ever again lives through the financial crisis that we suffered in 1991. That was a frightful problem, and I think we should have a high regard for quality long-term financial planning.
All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Mansion and Museum. Communicate $54,000 within the fixed asset accounts as outlined in their
Project.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Councilor Bruce. Aye. Councilor Thorson.
Aye.
Councilor Coors for $4,000.
It's an event that we try to encourage the local people to come down to the area to see what Canal Park has to offer as far as its attractions and all the various shops down in the area.
The surroundings are not exactly Boston, but as the R.T. Quinlan's crowd will tell you, it's what goes on inside that counts. And what goes on at this Duluth bar is a lot of fun. Saucy waitresses serve more than just drinks, and the bartender pours a few punchlines as well. It's a place that Norm and Cliff, regulars from Cheers, would call home.
Well, they have some of the same characters, you know. I think a lot of bars do, but this one does. It's friendly, the atmosphere, it's good.
Afternoon, everybody.
There was always a hearty welcome and a full beer waiting for the Cheers character Norm. And if there's a Norm at R.T. Quinlan's, it's regular Bunny Waterhouse, who's been coming to the bar for more than 30 years.
Well, this is where I hang out. I mean, this is the place that I meet the friends and have a few drinks and a few laughs.
And just like at the bar Cheers, sometimes those laughs are on you.
Well, if you want to talk about a place where you can come for a good drink or get an insult or, you know, like Bunny over there, nice clothes, too bad they didn't have your size.
But it's all good-hearted fun, and as this crowd will tell you, it's home away from home.
Oh yeah, this is much better than Cheers, actually. Lots of stories here.
What was scary to me was to learn that the #1 lure is not candy, it's not money, it's one of affection or attention. And what we need to know is that kids need to feel good about themselves. They're less likely then to get tricked or lured into dangerous situations. Yeah, we have a 1-800 number. It's 1-800-325.
This year, thousands and thousands of children will be lured into abduction. But there are things you can do to prevent your child from being tricked by a stranger. For a list of safety tips, call the Jacob Wetterling Foundation now, before it's too late. The Jacob Wetterling Foundation, 1-800-325-HOPE.
We will continue to monitor the area, make sure the fuel is gone, and make sure we clean it up properly. So we'll continue to test the area, make sure there's no fuel in the ground or in the water.
When you walk down the halls of Ashland High School, you may start seeing double. No wonder, there's 5 sets of twins who go to school here.
Well, just they look exactly alike, you don't know who's who.
They sure had us fooled. Meet Lisa, Lori, Jennifer, Jessica, Karen, Kara, Jennifer, Jeanette, and Jeff and Greg. Or is it Greg and Jeff? Either way, it's like looking in a mirror.
I mean, the weird thing about it is everybody thinks we're the most alike, and we're not even identical twins.
But being a twin in high school does have its problems.
I think one of the disadvantages were that competition. We're always competing for grades and sports and everything. I mean, I always did better than her, but still, it was just really...
But it also has its rewards, from being able to fool teachers to 2 pages in the yearbook devoted to the twins.
Greg and I have switched places in orchestra. I played his bass, he played my violin. That was kind of confusing for the subs, and it was kind of fun.
From friends to classes to teachers, these seniors say they share everything with their other half. Well, almost everything.
You've dated people after all. Every time I say I'm going to go with a guy, she says, okay, we'll both try, so you can get him first.
You may think it's rather unusual to have this many twins in one high school. We sure did. But according to this teacher, who's a twin herself, it's all part of the school tradition.
When I graduated, we had 2 sets of twins and a set of triplets.
So what comes after graduation? Will these twins split up? That all depends on who you talk to.
But it was just kind of weird. Within like a week, without even talking to each other, we both decided to go to the same college. We're not rooming together.
Me and Jen are going to the same college for the same thing. Fashion merchandising, Superior Technical School. It'll be fun.
You can get Lisa and I to pay each other enough to go to the same college.
All but one set of twins was born right here in Ashland, just a few months apart. Is it something in the water? Amy Rutledge, News 6.
There are many secrets in the depths of Lake Superior, some good, some bad. These unknowns have drawn speculation for years, but now conclusive answers are imperative. We need to know what type and how much pollution is in the lake, and we must find out where it's coming from. We also want to know more about the species that inhabit this big lake. Vessels like the Environmental Protection Agency ship the Lake Guardian are unlocking some of the mysteries with the full support of Northlanders.
We've had some of the keenest interest applied right here because people know they've got the cleanest water, and they have had, and is it still being maintained that way?
With that kind of popular interest, Duluth has begun to expand the amount and type of freshwater research it's doing. The EPA has added the research vessel, the Lake Explorer, at Duluth's Water Quality Lab. UMD's NRRI research facility has the Center for Water and Environment. Plans for Duluth Lake Superior Center are moving along, and both UWS and UMD have Sea Grant research offices here. Congressman Jim Oberstar sees a potential for a much more united research effort.
We want the EPA lab to be the world's beacon on fresh water, and with this additional resource, it will happen.
The additional resources include a plan to move the headquarters of the U of M Sea Grant program to Duluth. The director of Duluth's program sees that as the best use of limited resources.
I don't see the number of dollars we have expanding tremendously in the future. And so I think the ability to use our dollars in a better way and to put them to better use and to focus more on those things that we do.
If Sea Grant does move its headquarters to Duluth, it brings with it an annual $1 million research budget. Area scientists are excited about the possibilities for expansion in environmental studies as Duluth moves closer to becoming a national center for freshwater research. On the waterfront, Barbara Riles, News 6.
Memorial Day is kind of the traditional kickoff, though, for everybody coming in and vacation starting, and school being out is just around the corner, so people are starting to whet their appetites to travel and do things. But I think this will be the starter of a pretty good year.
Royal Canadian Legion.
It seems like, like the Second World War veterans now. They're, well, kind of forgot. Korean War I was in, they forgot that completely. So now they're getting it back. So things are changing now. It's coming back to giving respect to the ones that give it all.
American Legion pulls 430.
Even a month, and I'll have it done. I'll have the new floor in.
But unfortunately, that program, exactly what it is, that our total national annual income. It declines. I'm the class nerd or something, but I think in line, we never had a deficit larger than $74 billion. However, in 1981,
We're attempting to arrange that we have a deputy and a state trooper on weekends and holiday times. That's when the crowds tend to draw in and expand sometimes beyond the capability of the roads.
And believe me, it's changed in the last week. Any additional expenditures?
We pass a budget that does not include
problems in their acclimating there.
What was the cost of lanes and steps? What was the cost of insurance? What was the cost of fringe benefits? And at what time did we increase or decrease these, and how does that relate to the new budget? And if we get that information, we'll probably adopt a new budget.
We're seeing, I think, a resurgence in banking, both in terms of bank activity. Loans are up fairly substantially in some respects, and banking has really solidified its position.
And when we got into the facility to find out what had to be done, we found that much of the concrete work had to be redone. The concrete, the rebar had been rotted out in many cases, and it became much more expensive than anticipated. We did the work, most of it internally in terms of architecture and the construction management of it. Had we not done that, the facility to renovate would probably have doubled in cost. We'd have been well over $1 million.
We spoke this morning about some of the general issues. We're not here to change, our procedures or how much we charge for stamps and things of that nature, but better to improve the services, what their perceptions are of the services we provide within the city here.
Accessibility for people with multiple sclerosis and other physical. In talking to the mayor, a lot of that has already been taken into consideration and they're working on it. We just want to have the $5,000 kind of ensure that it won't just be in the designs, that it'll actually happen.
Well, I know the problems here. I know the unique needs. I know that we're 330 miles from the capital. I know the programs that are needed here. I know that we have certain transportation needs that are unique to the rest of the state.
Real gentle.
Anglers, both young and old, are populating Minnesota's lakes as part of the Take a Kid Fishing Weekend. What started as a national event to get kids interested in fishing has been adopted by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. The department hopes to attract young anglers by not requiring a fishing license for any adult who is willing to take them.
You know, we are kind of targeting these young anglers and trying to get them interested in the sport, and also trying to get them to learn how to fish maybe in a responsible way and have a good time too.
Grand Rapids is just one of many communities sponsoring special fishing activities to go along with the weekend. Activities which include teaching kids how to cast, making fishing poles out of pop cans, and some unique fishing techniques. Although the fish and the children may be small, the stories were as big as the one that got away.
But the first one is when I was up at my grandma's, I caught this big, humongous nose in a bowl like that big, actually that big. And then at my other grandma's, I caught like a salmon in a bowl like that big.
DNR officials hope this weekend's events will put the fishing bug into both kids and adults.
I think they'd like me to take them every day at this point. They've had a really good time today, and I think they've learned a lot about fishing and about fish too.
The events and the fun may be over come Monday, but the memories will last a lifetime.
Woo!
Really busy because of the kayakers, yeah.
Is it like this every year when they come? Or?
Yeah, we've been busy. The last few years we've been really busy for kayak races.
Date, and then all of a sudden it comes due and everybody has to scramble. Now we know that we're not going to be 100% and everything will be running at 100%. That's not the idea. The idea is to open it up, to get the new staff involved with people, get them trained, and a lot of them are still in training, and to get them familiar with the customers.
Every man, woman, and child in America. They call it trade policy, they say it's something that only economists can understand, but the reality is that it's your job, your spouse's job, and your children's future that's at stake with this trade agreement.
Is that it's an individual choice of the woman. And it's kind of based on her instinct at that time, what she thinks is best for her.
We're waiting for people to call us. We know that the composite that we have is a good representation of the person, and we know that there are people in the community that know someone who looks like this individual, and we're waiting for someone to call and tell us that.
We're working some area search dogs right now, and the area search dogs are worked into the wind. If they pick up a specific human scent out in that area, they're going to go in on it and come back and alert to their handler by either barking or jumping on them.
Depending on the amount of other kinds of, you take the 110 times the 13,000, and that generates one.
Not promised, but it's certainly part of the expectation that we would enhance the curriculum with those specialists as part of developing this long-term strategic plan for the district.
We're here to say no. No to the bombing in Somalia. We're here to say out. The United States should get its guns, its soldiers, all of its military apparatus out of Somalia.
I mean, it's right there in black and white that I did lie, and I'll admit that I probably did. But to me, I hadn't had any training for answering questions in court.
And it's that lie that cost Officer Eric Flood a 10-month suspension without pay from the Superior Police Department, a much lighter punishment than recommended by the prosecutor and the acting police chief.
We were pained by the situation, but came to the conclusion that there could be nothing less than termination.
Flood has been with the police department for less than 3 years. His attorney argues his lack of training played a major role in his poor performance on the witness stand. Flood lied during the robbery trial of Brian Griffith. Charges were dropped against Griffith after the real robber confessed to the crime. However, the stigma of the arrest and trial are still with the young Superior man.
I kept thinking that something really bad was going to happen. But then at the same time, there was something inside me that said that it's going to turn out for the better. And I just held on to those feelings.
Brian is a Native American. His mother, Kathy, says she believes the treatment of her son was racially motivated and had hoped for the dismissal of the officer who lied in her son's trial.
Any compassion I may have had for Eric Flood is completely gone because I remember back to what my son looked like in jail and in court and the mental anguish that he went through.
The employees that we get here from UDAC are very dedicated, committed. They enjoy their work and they take a real pride in what they do. They help us at the same time as we're able to help them.
It's been a year, and life still isn't back to normal for the Leibels and other families living in the red zone.
The fear. They're living in fear of what if, what if, what if. Then you didn't. You didn't. The kids could come and go and do as they wanted to a certain extent. They could ride their bikes and ride the ATV through on the trails. They could run outside in their barefoot. I could cook with the water. I could clean different things with the, now and drink the water. Now we don't.
The Leibels think about Toxic Tuesday every day. Though for many people in the Northland, the benzene spill and evacuation was little more than an inconvenience. After thousands of Northlanders collected claim checks from Burlington Northern, Toxic Tuesday was forgotten. But questions still remain in the red zone, such as why have their children become sick?
There is people with health problems. There is young children having health problems. And they can't give us any answers definite that there isn't any long-term effects. And I think to that the people out here should be taken into consideration for that.
Penny Leibel worries about the future health of her family.
How long is the range, is the time? Is this going to affect our health in 20 years down the road? Is one of us going to get cancer? Is one of us going to get leukemia? Is one of us going to get something that, they say, oh yes, this is caused from that spill that happened 20 years ago?
They're still waiting to see if the federal government will do a health survey of the red zone. And then there's the question of property value. Here's an appraisal report of one house located in the red zone. The depreciation category notes that a toxic benzene spill occurred nearby.
If you have to do this and you want to sell your home, and somebody from outside of the area would say, toxic, just the word toxic seems to frighten them.
And the question of compensation remains. Red zone residents were paid for out-of-pocket expenses during the evacuation, but many are still in litigation over the long-term effects. A year later, here in the red zone, Toxic Tuesday is not being forgotten. South of Superior, Gina Katzmark, News 6.
$37 million Americans are without health insurance. Millions more are critically underinsured. A problem that won't go away without a comprehensive plan. Many have turned to the north, suggesting the Canadian system of national health care should be adopted here.
That was crafted at a time when there was...
Dr. Walter Benjamin, a nationally known medical and business ethicist from St. Paul's Hamlin University, outlined the strong and weak points of the Canadian system today to a group of doctors at St. Luke's Hospital.
I would say that if you're middle class, the American system's better. If you're employed and you have health insurance. I think the Canadian system is a very good system if you do not have serious chronic problems.
Dr. Benjamin outlined what he feels to be the best and worst features of the Canadian system. He says fairness and equality of care leads the lists of strengths. Other values of the Canadian system include the ability of each province to design its own system within some national bounds, and its rationality or acceptance of when enough medical treatment is enough.
And so we become captive to our technologies. Okay. So they simply say that even though it can be done, ought it to be done?
Dr. Benjamin also listed as a strength of the control of overspecialization. Canada has at least 50% of its doctors in primary care. The U.S. is only 29%, with the rest specializing. The weaknesses Dr. Benjamin outlines include a seemingly unsolvable conflict between physicians and the government, a patient delay in getting non-emergency treatment, a comparatively longer hospital stay for patients, and a very high institutionalization of senior citizens. Dr. Benjamin says what we need is a medical Solomon who can combine the best of both systems. The American focus on market forces and freedom of choice, with the Canadian devotion to fairness and equal treatment for all. At St. Luke's Hospital in Duluth, Barbara Riles, News 6.
To the owner, and the plane's been running fine for the last couple of weeks, but according to the pilot, at about 50 foot of altitude after leaving a nearby airstrip, he lost power.
Who's going to get stuck for the bill?
Actually,
You've got lights on. Oh, you're running.
Yeah.